Once upon a time in the year 331 BCE, a great battle took place on the plains of Gaugamela, located to the east of the city of Mosul in modern-day northern Iraq. The opposing forces were the mighty Macedonians, led by King Alexander III, and the vast Persian Empire, commanded by King Darius III. This battle would prove to be of immense importance in shaping the fate of these empires. After successful sieges of Tyre and Gaza in 332 BCE, Alexander the Great took a brief pause from conquest to consolidate his territories and strengthen his communication lines. He was welcomed as a liberator by the people he conquered, and his lenient approach and restoration of temples won him their support. During this time, Alexander absorbed Egypt and made plans for the magnificent city of Alexandria. Once his territories were secure, Alexander embarked on a journey back across the empire he had built. This time, his target was the Persian cities. To reach them, he and his army crossed the Euphrates River using a bridge constructed by his general and lover, Hephaestion. Meanwhile, King Darius III of Persia had been assembling a new army since his defeat at the Battle of Issus in 333 BCE. Alexander's army consisted of approximately 47,000 men, including 31,000 heavy infantry, 9,000 light infantry, and 7,000 cavalry. Darius, on the other hand, commanded a force estimated to be as large as 100,000 men, with up to 40,000 cavalry. Although Darius outnumbered Alexander, the Macedonian king had a well-trained, organized, and disciplined army, while Darius commanded a diverse force consisting of soldiers from various eastern provinces. The stage was set for a showdown at Gaugamela. Darius, relying on his superior numbers, chose not to oppose Alexander's approach. He selected the location strategically, aiming to utilize his vast army and chariots, which were equipped with scythes mounted on their wheel hubs to mow down Alexander's forces. Some sources suggest that Darius cleared the plain of vegetation to facilitate maneuverability and had confidence in his preparations for victory. Alexander, however, took a cautious approach. He marched slowly to Gaugamela, hoping to exhaust the defenders' supplies. When he finally arrived, his chief of staff, Parmenio, suggested a night attack to offset the numerical disadvantage, but Alexander refused. He believed in earning victories through fair means and did not wish to rely on stealth. Little did he know that Darius had feared a night assault and had kept his troops awake, leaving them exhausted. The battle commenced on October 1, 331 BCE. Alexander, leading his elite companion cavalry, commanded the right flank of his army, while Parmenio oversaw the left flank. Macedonian and Greek cavalry protected the flanks. Alexander devised a clever plan, arranging his army in an oblique formation. He refused his left flank and maneuvered the army to the right, creating a weak point in the center of the Persian line. His strategy relied on his flanks holding firm until he could detect this weakness and strike a decisive blow. Darius positioned himself in the center of the Persian line with his best infantry, while Bessus commanded the cavalry on the Persian left wing, including chariots. Mazias commanded the right flank of the Persian cavalry. With their superior numbers and longer line, it seemed inevitable that the Persians would flank Alexander's army. Darius ordered Bessus to send cavalry to surround the Macedonian right wing and halt Alexander's movement. Around 11,000 cavalrymen were committed to this effort, but they were met by the far inferior force of Macedonian cavalry and Greek mercenary infantry. Alexander's disciplined and closely knit cavalry proved superior to the Persians, who lacked cohesion due to their diverse origins. On the other side, Darius directed 100 chariots positioned in front of his left wing to attack Alexander's elite companion cavalry on the Macedonian right. However, Alexander's infantry screen of javelin throwers, archers, and light infantry weakened the impact of the Persian chariot charge. The companions skillfully evaded the chariots, allowing them to pass through unopposed. But as the chariots encountered the Macedonian infantry's lances, the gap closed, and the Persian charioteers were quickly annihilated. Darius then gave the order to launch a general advance. Mazias, leading the Persian right wing, advanced against the Macedonian left commanded by Parmenio. Mazias also sent cavalry in an attempt to flank the Macedonian line. Simultaneously, Bessus aimed to encircle the Macedonian right wing. These maneuvers by Bessus and Mazias stretched the Persian line as Alexander had anticipated, weakening its center. Mazias faced a particularly challenging task as his troops had to cover a greater distance to engage Alexander's refused left wing. Alexander closely observed the Persian line, waiting for a weakness to exploit. Once he detected it, he rallied his reserves and led his elite companion cavalry and light infantry in a wedge-shaped formation into the breach. Twice, the Macedonians burst through gaps in the Persian line, driving perilously close to Darius's chariot. The Persian flanks were now in danger due to the significant gap created by the Macedonians in the center of the line. Fearing encirclement, Bessus and his forces retreated, suffering heavy casualties at the hands of the pursuing Macedonians. Darius, realizing that he himself was at risk of being cut off, panicked and fled the battlefield. With the Persians in disarray, the Macedonians relentlessly pressed forward, scattering the vast Persian host. Meanwhile, Alexander's left wing, engaged in a fierce battle with Mazias's troops, struggled to keep pace with the rest of the Macedonian advance. Although Alexander attempted to encircle Mazias, his own cavalry pushed the Persians back too quickly, foiling his plan. Nevertheless, the victory was decisive. The Macedonians reported approximately 500 killed and up to 3,000 wounded, while Persian losses were estimated at around 50,000. After the battle, Bessus and other Persian generals murdered Darius. Alexander later captured and executed these regicides. Instead of resting, Alexander swiftly advanced towards the Persian capital of Persepolis to prevent the Persian generals from regrouping their forces. Alexander divided his army, sending most of his men on the longer route, while he led approximately one-third of his force through the treacherous mountains via the Persian gates, defended by Barzan and his Persian army. The Persians managed to halt the Macedonians at the narrow pass and reportedly inflicted heavy casualties. However, Alexander, through the help of a shepherd or prisoners, discovered a path that flanked the Persian position. In a daring move, he and a small group of soldiers traversed this path under the cover of darkness and turned the Persian position. As a result, Alexander reached Persepolis before the treasury guards could hide its reputed 3,000 tons of gold and silver, making it the wealthiest treasury in the world. He then ordered the destruction of the Grand Palace, symbolizing the end of Persian power. At the age of 25, Alexander had achieved what no one else could match. In just 4 years, he had shattered the power of Persia and ruled over an empire spanning 1 million square miles. His accomplishments were unmatched in terms of speed and scale. However, Alexander had no intention of resting on his laurels. He continued his conquests, reaching as far as the steppes of Russia to the north and India to the south. Unfortunately, his soldiers eventually reached their limit, refusing to go any farther. Alexander met his demise in Babylon in 323 BCE after succumbing to illness, possibly exacerbated by a drinking binge. One of the many mysteries surrounding Alexander's life is his failure to designate a successor. It wasn't until the final year of his life that he fathered an heir, who was too young to prevent a power struggle for the throne. As Alexander lay on his deathbed, one of his generals asked him who should inherit the throne. According to reports, Alexander whispered, "Cratisto, to the strongest." His empire was subsequently divided among his generals, and his vision of a universal commonwealth was lost.